The wind hits your face like a cold, wet slap. The smell is of rotting fish, moldy wood, and the sweat of a man who hasn't bathed in weeks. You open your eyes and see the gray sky up above, swaying back and forth as if the entire world had lost its mind. You are on the deck of a pirate ship in the 17th century, and in the next few minutes you will understand why this life that looks like adventure in the movies was actually one of the worst fates a human being could have. Welcome to the floating hell. And today, you are a pirate on the open sea. Nobody told you the truth when you stepped onto this ship. They told you there would be gold, that there would be freedom, that you were going to escape the misery of dry land and finally be the master of your own destiny. And you believed them, because when you have nothing, any promise sounds good. Most of the men who became pirates didn't choose this life out of courage or a thirst for adventure. They ended up here because they were kidnapped from other ships, because they were running from debts, from prison, from hunger. Some were simply carried aboard by force, too drunk to realize what was happening. And when you wake up sober in the middle of the ocean, with no land in sight, reality crashes down on you like an anchor. There's no going back. This ship is your home now. This filthy, violent, desperate crew is your family now. And you need to learn the rules before someone teaches them to you by force. You go below deck, and the smell hits you before you can even see anything. It's dark, damp. The ceiling is so low, you have to hunch over just to walk. You sleep in a hammock, alongside 30, 40 other men. No mattress, no pillow, no privacy. The heat down below in the summer is suffocating. In the winter, the cold cuts through the wood and seeps into your bones while you try to sleep to the sound of snoring, coughing, and rats scurrying across the floor. The rats are a constant. They eat your food, gnaw through your clothes, and run over your face while you sleep. And over time, you stop being startled. You simply accept it. Because on a pirate ship, learning to accept the unacceptable is a matter of survival. Now comes the part nobody talks about in pirate movies. The food. In the first few days, you still have bread. But it doesn't take long for that bread to start rotting. After a week, it turns hard as a rock. After 2 weeks, it grows a green mold that you scrape off with your knife and eat anyway, because the alternative is eating nothing at all. There's the ship's biscuit, something that feels like a flattened stone, tastes like nothing, and on the inside is crawling with maggots. Yes, maggots. You learn to bang the biscuit against the edge of the table before eating, to knock the maggots out. In the first few days, you throw them away. After a week of hunger, you eat them along with the maggots and pretend you don't see them. The salted meat that comes in barrels smells rancid and has a texture that no longer resembles meat. The water stored in casks starts to rot after a few days in the heat, turning a greenish color, and you drink it anyway, holding your breath. Some pirates preferred to drink stale beer instead of water, because the beer at least didn't kill you quite as fast. And that detail says everything. You start to notice that your teeth are coming loose. It's subtle at first. You bite into the biscuit and feel a strange pain in your gum. A week passes, and the pain gets worse. Another week, and you see blood when you run your tongue over your teeth. That is scurvy, a disease caused by a lack of vitamin C, which nobody fully understood at the time. They only knew that it happened at sea, that it left the body weak, made the gums rot, reopened old wounds that had already healed, and in the end, it killed you. You watch strong men turn into ghosts within a matter of weeks. But scurvy isn't the only problem. There's dysentery, which leaves you bedridden for days with fever and stomach pain, losing fluids faster than you can replace them. There's malaria when the ship passes through tropical regions. There are wound infections that won't heal because the constant dampness won't allow it. There is no doctor on a pirate ship. There's a guy who once watched another guy perform a surgery and has considered himself the ship's surgeon ever since. He amputates limbs with a knife and a saw, with no anesthesia, while others hold you down on the table. And if you survive the amputation, you still have to pray the infection doesn't kill you afterward. When you're well enough to work, the routine starts before the sun comes up. You climb to the deck and you begin. Scrubbing the deck on your knees, scouring the wood with rough stones while seawater soaks everything, repairing sails torn by the wind, hauling thick ropes that cut into your hands, climbing the masts while the ship pitches and rolls, 40 meters up in the air with the wind trying to tear you off like a leaf. One mistake, one moment of distraction, and you fall, onto the deck or into the sea. In either case, your chances of surviving are slim. Men who fall overboard are rarely rescued. The ship takes too long to stop, the currents are treacherous, and most of the crew can't swim. It's ironic, isn't it? Pirates who can't swim. But it's true. Swimming was considered useless by many sailors of the time because in the open ocean, knowing how to swim only prolongs the suffering before you sink anyway. Now let's talk about the people you share this tiny, reeking, dangerous space with. You've probably heard that pirates had a code of honor, that they were democratic, that they voted on decisions, that they divided the loot fairly. And that was partly true. There were rules. There were votes. The pirate code was real. And some pirates, like Bartholomew Roberts, had clear guidelines about how the money would be split, how the wounded would be compensated, and what happened to anyone who betrayed the crew. But living alongside these men day to day was another story entirely. These were desperate, traumatized, violent men. Fights broke out over nothing, over a food ration, over a sleeping spot, over a word misheard in the noise of the wind. The violence was swift and brutal. And you need to learn to navigate this environment very carefully, to know when to speak, when to stay silent, when to laugh at the wrong jokes coming from someone with a knife on their belt. In a wooden space with nowhere to escape, you are always surrounded by your potential enemies. And then one day, finally, a ship appears on the horizon. This is why you're here. This is what you survived the scurvy for. The maggots in the biscuit. The cold of the late-night watch on deck. Your heart starts pounding. The crew snaps out of a state of dead boredom, and suddenly everyone has energy. Everyone is shouting. Everyone is moving. You grab a weapon you've never used before, loaded with damp gunpowder that might not fire at the right moment, and you get ready to fight. And here's the thing they never told you. Most pirates preferred not to fight, because fighting cost lives. It cost wounded men who had no treatment. It cost ammunition that was hard to replace. The plan was always to intimidate, raise the flag, fire a warning cannon, look so terrifying that the other ship would surrender without a fight. But when it went wrong, when the other ship resisted, when the cannon started exchanging real fire, the noise was deafening. The smoke was suffocating. And men around you fell with splinters of wood driven through their bodies, with cannonballs that took arms and legs and heads as if they were made of paper. And you're still standing out of pure luck, trembling, trying to remember how to reload the pistol with hands covered in gunpowder and blood. But do you know what was the worst part of being a pirate? It wasn't the hunger. It wasn't the disease. It wasn't even the combat. It was the boredom. Weeks, sometimes months, in the middle of the ocean with nothing in sight. No land, no enemy ship, nothing at all. Just the rocking, the wind, the sun that burns during the day, and the cold that cuts at night. The same faces of the same men, every single day, with absolutely nothing new. The mind starts doing strange things when it has nothing to do. Men became paranoid, suspicious. They saw betrayal everywhere. Madness was a frequent companion on pirate ships, and not by accident. There was no way back. There was no retirement plan. You were not going to save money for old age. Most pirates died before the age of 40, from disease, in combat, or hanging from a gallows in some port town. The average life expectancy of an active pirate was 2 years. 2 years. And you knew that. Everyone knew that. And yet they kept going. Because out there, the alternative was being a slave on a plantation, a sailor in a Royal Navy that treated its men in almost exactly the same way, or dying of starvation in some port city. The sea was horrible. But sometimes the world on land was even worse. The ship rocks. You're lying in your hammock, in the dark, listening to the rats, listening to the other men sleeping or trying to sleep, taking in the smell of everything this place represents. And you think, this is why. This is why I chose this. Not for the glamour, not for the heroism, not for any of the stories they told you. You chose this hell because it was the only place where nobody gave you orders. And maybe, in the end, that's what every human being wants most, even if it costs everything. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like.